Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hopefully you are fine. Today we are going to take the last part of this chapter, which is chapter 15. And we are going to take functions and the modes of classification. Let's start with functions. Each of the positions in the pattern sentence has a dual role. The patterns that we have studied, each one of them has a dual role. Each position is the habitat of a particular part of a speech: noun, verb, adjective, and adverb. For example, in pattern 7, the boy gobbled the hamburger. Here the noun 1, which is boy, and the noun 2, hamburger, positions are characteristically inhabited by nouns. You could replace boy and hamburger by hundreds of other nouns, and the transitive verb position is characteristically inhabited by verbs of the kind that are followed by noun objects. So here, boy and hamburger, namely noun 1 and noun 2, they can be replaced by many nouns because this slot is belong to a noun, or it is occupied by a noun, and this slot also is occupied by a noun. The second role of each position is to signal the grammatical meaning of its occupant. This grammatical meaning is known as function. The occupant of the N1 in our previous example position has the function of performer of the action of the verb. So here the function of the boy is the performer of the action of the verb. So he performs the action, which is gobbled. This function is labeled SV, which stands for subject of the verb. N2 is another home for nouns, but the occupant here is a different function, that of undergoer of the action of the verb. So here the hamburger or hamburger, it's the undergoer of the action of the verb, the thing that experienced the action, which is gobbled. So hamburger is the undergoer of the action of the verb, the one that is experienced the action. This function, that of undergoing, is labeled DO, which stands for direct object of the verb. Function then is the grammatical job. This is the definition of function, or what is meant by function. Function then is the grammatical job that any word or word group does in its particular position. It's the grammatical meaning. So function is the grammatical meaning. Here are the functions with a note of the job of each. Here we have in this table the functions and a note of the job of each. And this table is divided into two columns. The first one is label of function, and the second column is the grammatical meaning of those functions. The first one, subject of verb, which is SV, subject of verb. This is the label of the function, but the grammatical meaning, or the function itself, that which performs action of verb, and which is found in pattern 6, 7, 8, 9. For example, girls smile. Girls smile. Girls here is subject of verb, and that which the function of this subject is performs an action of verb. The girl here performs an action which is smile or smiling. The second one, that which is described, the label of function is the same, but the grammatical meaning or the function itself here is different. That which is described in pattern 1 and which is found in pattern 1 and pattern 4. For example, food is good. Food is good. Here the subject of the verb food and is described as here food is good. The sentence describe the food. How is it? So describe the food, whether it is good or bad. The third one, that which is identified, subject of the verb, the label of function, subject of the verb, whereas the grammatical meaning, the function of this subject of the verb is what? Is to identify, or that which is identified in pattern 3 and 4. For example, here Ali is a doctor. Ali here is identified as a doctor. Ali is a doctor. This is a pattern 3. Ali is identified as a doctor. The fourth one, the label of function also the same, subject of the verb, but the grammatical meaning or the function itself is different. Here, that about which an assertion is made, and it is found in pattern 2. For example, the girl is here. The girl is here. That about which an assertion, to make an assertion. The subject here, the girl, is to make an assertion that it is here. Turn to the second one, verb or predicator. Here we have 3 options or 3 different functions. For example, that which asserts an action or state in pattern 2, and it is found in pattern 2, 6, 7, 8, 9. The same example that which we have taken before. The girl is here. Here is as a verb. It's used to assert an action or to confirm an action or state. The girl is here. So here the verb is used to assert an action, which is here. Number 2, the verb also, the label of it is a verb or predicator, but the function itself is maybe described as in pattern 1 and 4. For example, food is good. The verb here is used to describe something. For example, here we are describing the food. The food is good. So we use, or the function of is maybe described as. The third one, the verb also, we are talking here about the verb, may be identified. The function of this verb here may be identified as, and it's found in pattern 3 and 4. For example, Ali is a doctor. Is here used to identify or to identify Ali, which is a doctor. So we use is here as a verb or as predicator to identify Ali. Ali is a doctor. Turn to the third one, subjective complement, and sometimes it is abbreviated like that, SC, subjective complement. That which follows be or a verb like becomes and identifies the subject. So here identifies the subject and follow be. For example, when we say that is she, that is she here follows a verb to identify the subject. So she identifies that because that here is the subject, that is she. The second one, direct object, and it is abbreviated DO. The function of the direct object, that which undergoes the action of the verb, undergoes the action of the verb. For example, here, the boy gobbled the hamburger. The boy gobbled the hamburger. The hamburger here is the direct object, and the function of this direct object, that which undergoes the action of the verb, experience the action of the verb, which is gobbling. Turn to the indirect object, and it's abbreviated IO. The function of this indirect object is what? That person or thing to or for whom an action is performed. That person or thing to or for whom an action is performed. For example, in our sentence, the mother bought the girl a dress. The mother bought the girl a dress. The girl here is indirect object, and the function of this indirect object is what? To or for whom an action is performed. So this action is performed to the girl. This is the function of indirect object. The next, objective complement, OC. The function of this objective complement is what? That which completes the direct object and describes or identifies it. Describes or identifies. For example, when we say hard practice made Ali a good student. Hard practice made Ali a good student. Here, the objective complement, which is a good student. This is an objective complement of Ali. Hard practice made Ali a good student. A good student here is an objective complement, and the function of this objective complement, which to describes or identifies the object itself, to which completes the direct object and describes or identifies it. The next one, object of preposition. Object of a preposition, and it's abbreviated OP. The function of this OP is that which is related to another word by a preposition. Which is related to another word by a preposition. For example, can you see from where you sit? Our sentence or our example here, can you see from where you sit? Where you sit here is an object of preposition. It is an object of preposition which is here from. In our sentence, from. I'll repeat the sentence. Can you see from where you sit? Can you see from where you sit? Where you sit here, an object of preposition. And the function of this an object of preposition is what? That which is related to another word by a preposition. So it is related to another word by the preposition from. Complement of a noun. A function of this label is what? A word group that behaves like a direct object of the verb corresponding to the noun. For example, his hope that she would win was strong. Was strong here, complement of the noun, which is his hope. So was strong is complete, or it is completing the subject or the noun here, his hope. His hope that she would win was strong. The next, complement of adjective. complement of adjective. A word group that directly follows and completes an adjective. For example, I'm glad that you came. That you came here, it is a complement of the adjective glad. That you came, a complement of glad. The next one, modifier. That which modifies, limits, or adds to the meaning of a word or word group. A modifier can be a word or word group. And I think we had talked about the modifier in our previous chapter. Connector. That which connects words and or word groups. The connectors by function are the coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and prepositions and relatives. And it's not so important here, the connectors. Turn to the second part, which is 3 modes of classification. 3 modes of classification. The first one, classification by function. Let's have a look on this example before talking about this one. The boy gobbled the hamburger. Our example again is repeated again here. The boy gobbled the hamburger. The position of hamburger. The position of hamburger signals that its grammatical meaning or its function is that of undergoer of the action, and this function is labeled direct object of the verb. So here the function of hamburger is what? Undergoer of the action, and this function is labeled as what? Direct object of the verb. So this is the first one, classification by function. The second one, classification by form. In this mode of classification, we classify words by word form alone, using inflectional and derivational suffixes to determine the class to which a particular word belongs. There are 5 form classes. For example, noun, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and uninflected words. So the second one is just classification by form. You look on the word whether its form is verb, adjective, adverb, or verb, or uninflected words. The third one, classification by position. In this mode of classification, it's the part of a speech, not the function, that is associated with the positions. A part of a speech, not the function, that is associated with positions. This means that certain group of positions are normally occupied by particular parts of a speech. For example, the positions that have the functions of subject of the verb and subjective complement here SC, and direct object, indirect object, and objective complement, and the last one, objective of preposition, are normally occupied by nouns. So the positions that have those functions are normally occupied by nouns. Therefore, we consider these 6 positions to be noun positions. Noun positions. Thus, any word or word group that occupies any of these positions, whether a noun or not, is called a nominal by position, regardless of its form, class, or its function. Regardless of its form, class, or its function. These 3 classifications will be made clear by the example below. Let's see this example. The shouting boys will play tennis. Shouting is a modifier by function. A modifier by function. A verb by form. Its form like a verb. So a verb by form and an adjectival by position. Shouting here has 3 classifications. The first classification is what? Is a modifier by function. The function of shouting here is a modifier. And also the form of shouting is what? A verb. Shouting, the form of it is a verb. And the position of shouting is an adjectival because it comes before the noun boys. Second, or B, boys here is the subject of the verb by function. The function of boys here is the subject of the verb. And the form of boys here is what? Is a noun. It's obvious, boys is a noun. And the position of boys here is a nominal because it is subject of the verb. SV, because it is SV. The third one, tennis here is the object of the verb by function. The function of tennis is the object of the verb, and the form of tennis is a noun, and sometimes it's called an inflected word, tennis, but traditionally called as a noun. The form of it is a noun. And a nominal, the position of tennis here is a nominal. And this is the end of part 3 of chapter 15. Thanks for listening and goodbye.